Good afternoon, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. We have a full agenda. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation's annual Financial Literacy Resource Webinar. My name is Katie Carrasco, and I'm the Northern California Targeted Outreach Specialist. Slide, please. So a couple housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded. Your microphone and cameras have been disabled. If you have questions, you can email us and we'll give you the information after, but you're welcome to email us about any questions for any of our speakers today, and we'll make sure that it gets to the right place. Also, the slides will be emailed to you after the event, as well as a link to the recording of this presentation. And also it will be on our YouTube channel. So you'll receive all of these important clickable links. Now for a quick disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the presenters. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the DFPI. Any mention of specific products, services, or brands in this presentation is for informational purposes only and is not an endorsement or recommendation. This presentation is for educational and information purposes only and is not legal or financial advice. And I will let you know that there will be additional resources at the end of this event, so please stick around for those as well. So we have a really exciting group of people and organizations contributing to today's event. The DFPI's commissioner will start us off with insight into the importance of financial education. Then we're going to begin our exciting panel discussion with a group of experts with insight into consumer spending. It should be really interesting. I'm so excited. And then we'll hear from a handful of California departments on some wonderful programs available to consumers. But first, I'm excited to share welcome remarks from our commissioner of the DFPI, Casey Moseni. Next slide, please.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the department's 2025 Financial Literacy Month Resource Webinar. I'm Casey Moseni, Commissioner of the DFPI, and I'm happy to be here today highlighting the importance of financial education for Californians. As you know, DFPI is California's financial regulator, and our mission is to protect consumers and foster trust and innovation in the financial marketplace. Since the change of administration in Washington, we've received many inquiries from licensees and stakeholders about how these changes might impact our work. While we are closely monitoring developments at the federal level, I want to assure you that our department has robust authorities to protect consumers in the financial marketplace under multiple state laws, including the California Consumer Financial Protection Law. DFPI, along with the California Attorney General and other state regulators, will continue to have express authority to enforce both state and federal consumer financial laws. We remain committed to our mission to protect consumers and foster responsible innovation. Today, I want to highlight our efforts to promote financial education to consumers. The DFPI's targeted outreach team provides consumers with helpful information and resources on a variety of financial topics. The team helps Californians make informed decisions so they can protect themselves from fraud. Our materials are designed to educate Californians about the financial industry, services, and products. These consumer education materials are translated into multiple languages and are available on the DFPI website. The outreach team will provide their contact information at the end of this webinar, and please do contact them. They are here to support you and your organization. This year's webinar theme is Mind on Your Money, a look into consumer spending. Understanding how money works is more important now than ever, not just for managing personal budgets, but for making informed decisions that can shape your future. Financial literacy gives us the tools not only to save, invest, and plan, but also help understand how our financial decisions are often influenced by something many of us may not even realize, our emotions. Today, as we explore financial literacy, let's think about the psychological side of money, how our feelings influence our decisions and how we can use that awareness to make smarter choices. It's an exciting journey to both understand the numbers and the emotions that come with them. Thank you to all of the speakers and panelists here today who are providing us with your expertise on what factors influence our spending habits. And thank you for attending this important event as we learn more about this topic. Please enjoy the rest of the event and be sure to take advantage of the resources offered today. Back to you, Katie.
Well said. We sincerely appreciate our commissioner's leadership and dedication to our department and its mission. And now I'm thrilled to introduce DFPI's Director of Targeted Outreach, Koo Lee, who will introduce our amazing panelists for the consumer spending discussion. Koo, please take it away.
Thank you, Katie. Hello, everyone. My name is Cooley, and I'm the Director of Targeted Outreach for the California DFPI. I'm excited to moderate this interesting panel discussion on consumer spending habits. We often think of financial choices as purely rational, looking at numbers, comparing prices, or evaluating returns. However, emotions like fear, excitement, and stress play a huge role in how we spend, how we save, or how we invest. These emotional triggers can drive impulse purchases, shape our long-term financial habits, and even impact how we approach debt. Now I'm pleased to introduce our esteemed panelists to take a deeper dive into this topic. First, we have our first panelist, which is Dr. Stephanie Tully. She is, sorry about that, there we go. Dr. Stephanie Tully, she is the Associate Professor of Marketing at USC's Marshall School of Business and a visiting scholar at the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia's Consumer Financial Institute. She's a Marketing Science Institute Young Scholar, received a USC Marshall Dean's Award for Research Excellence, and was selected as a Poet and Quant's 50 Best Undergraduate Business Professor. She is an expert on consumer behavior with a particular focus on the impact of consumers' resources of money, time, and technology. Professor Tully's research has been published in top academic journals, including Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, Journal of Consumer Research, and Journal of Marketing Research. Her research has been awarded many honors, including being selected for the Innovation in Behavioral Policy Award from the Behavioral Science and Policy Association. Next, we have Helene Owen. She is the managing editor at the American Economic Liberties Project and a contributing columnist for MSNBC.com. She is the author of Pound Foolish, Exposing the Dark Side of the Personal Finance Industry, and the co-author of The Index Card, Why Personal Finance Doesn't Have to Be Complicated. A former columnist for the Washington Post opinion page and Slate, her work has also appeared in numerous other publications, including the New York Times and The Atlantic. She's been featured on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart and took part in Frontline's Emmy Award-winning The Retirement Gamble. She serves on the advisory board of the Economic Hardship Reporting Project. And finally, we have, get her right here, Dr. Joanna Karkevska. She is an associate professor in the School of Social Work at California State University, Los Angeles. Her expertise lies in high-impact pedagogy, such as service learning, qualitative research on the implementation of asset-building initiatives, such as CalKids, and immigrant family dynamics. Dr. Karkevska is also the founder of the Asset Building Clinic, ABC, which since 2015 has taught social workers and others how to financially empower themselves and their communities. ABC's publicly available online financial first responder certificate training has enabled Cal State LA graduates and undergraduate students to complete over 1,000 credit report checks as part of their core social work education, making Cal State LA the only program on the West Coast to embed financial training for future social service workers. So a big welcome and thank you for all of our panelists for being here and helping us learn more about the things that influence our spending and saving habits. Let's get started with the first question for the panel. And before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and get our panelist videos here. So let me spot Let's add spotlight. Sorry. Okay, perfect. And we're all here. This is the panel. Again, thank you for our panelists for being here. Let's get started with the first question. This is for all the panelists. How are our values and attitudes shaping our financial goals and decisions?
I can go ahead and get started. Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. Our attitudes and our perceptions affect our behaviors quite a lot. In fact, and a lot of the work that I have done, what I find is that people's beliefs of whether they're financially constrained and the extent to which they're financially constrained affect their behavior more so than their actual financial situations or their income would predict. And so how we view our financial situation, how we think about our financial situation can impact us in big ways. Additionally to that is, there are different attitudes that we hold. So there's a great scale called the Tightwad Spendthrift Scale, and it suggests that some people actually get pleasure from spending money. It's very pleasurable to them to actually spend money, whereas other people find it actually very aversive to spend money. And the pleasure or displeasure we get while we spend money affects how easily we spend our money. So people who enjoy that process end up spending more money than they otherwise would like to or should when they look back on it. Whereas people that find it aversive to spend money sometimes underspend and don't spend on things that they otherwise should spend on. There are also a lot of things in the marketplace that can affect us as well, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'll let the other panelists weigh in on other attitudes.
I could jump in next. Part of our training that was mentioned, we find it that reminding people of what their values are, just generally in life, is something, and then asking them to take a look at what their spending patterns are suddenly helps them to realize that not all of their spending is aligned actually with their values. So they come into the training thinking that, like, where has my money gone? And then they realize it has leaked out because of this unconscious spending that doesn't actually align with our values, but aligns a lot more with kind of the environment within which we are operating and the advertisement and all of these other kind of assumptions of deservingness that we get from just simply advertising. And it's interesting how values will then help us to self-correct in terms of like where do we want to put our spending.
Yeah, these are all great comments. What I would say is to take this in a slightly different direction. The United States is a place where it's often said that the luxuries are cheap, but the necessities are expensive. And at the same time, we live in a society that encourages us to spend, right? So we know that roughly 70%, perhaps somewhat more, because this number is now about 2 decades old, of our budgets for the average person is eaten up by healthcare, housing, and education, all of which have gone up at rates much higher than inflation for the past several decades, basically, with occasional blips where they don't. But we are also encouraged to spend all the time. We live in a society where to spend is to be on some levels. We are the society that invented the consumer republic and keeping up with the concept of keeping up with the Joneses. And so, there's maneuverability in there. And I think, while I hate to put burden on people, we often have to be very conscious of that, not simply because we are human and fallible, because we are all human and fallible, and we all give into temptation, no matter what our budgets are, but also because there is an increasingly large industry that will, I hesitate to use the word prey on us, but I guess I should say preys on us through tactics like surveillance pricing, through tactics like advertising, which has become more and more effective with each passing year, to get us to spend and to break our budgets, so to speak, and takes advantage of the impulse buys that we are all capable of doing.
Well, thank you for the responses. That's very, very insightful. To the next question for Dr. Tully, why do consumers feel that borrowed money is their own? Can you please explain the concept of psychological ownership of borrowed money?
Sure. So this work actually stemmed from trying to understand why consumers sometimes use very high interest forms of debt, like credit cards, when they're sometimes have lower interest forms of debt, like personal loans available to them. So credit cards tend to have the highest APRs in the marketplace, oftentimes around 25%. Whereas, if you're, if it's available to you, you can sometimes get a personal loan for as little as 4% or 5% APR. In studying this and trying to understand why it is that consumers are using their credit cards for very discretionary purchases where they're not paying it off at the end of the month, what we found was this idea of psychological ownership of borrowed money. Psychological ownership has been used in lots of different areas as this idea that we can feel ownership over things that we don't necessarily have legal ownership over, right? Or that it can be orthogonal, it could be separable from whether you have legal ownership. You can have legal ownership over something and feel like something is very much yours or not yours. And you can also not have legal ownership over something and feel like it is very yours or not yours. And so what we find is that people can feel psychological ownership over borrowed money, and they can feel that to different extents. So some people feel very much like borrowed money is just like their own money. It's like money in their bank account. It is theirs. And other people very much don't. And so we see across people that feel higher psychological ownership of borrowed money are more likely to use borrowed money, such as credit cards, to buy discretionary types of things. Things that they don't really need to go into debt for. And we also we find that this can explain why consumers are more willing to use borrowed money in the form of lines of credit as compared to loans. When something is called a line of credit, even if it's structurally identical to a loan, people feel like it's more like their money, almost like their future money, right? This is money that I will get in the future that I will repay. It's my money. I'm just getting it early. Whereas with a loan, we're more likely to think of it as not our money. And so we're going to think a little bit more carefully about whether we're going to use that money and whether it's worth using that money. And so this ends up making us sometimes use higher interest forms of debt, and we should be aware of that.
Yeah, that's very interesting, Dr. Tully. There was a consumer that shared with me, I let them know that it might be a flawed way of thinking. He said, if I could borrow $1 million, then I'm technically a millionaire. And I was like, well, you'd actually have to pay that back plus interest. So I'm not sure if that's completely accurate, but that's a very interesting concept. Thank you, Dr. Tully. That kind of sends me to the next question here. Dr. Tully, and this is for Ms. Olin as well. What type of cognitive biases influence spending? So that's like overvalued items, fear of losing out, instant gratification.
Sorry about that. I want to actually finish Stephanie's other point first, because there's a fun anecdote here worth discussing for a minute to really bring this home to people, which is that home equity lines used to be called second mortgages. And second mortgages were something you were supposed to avoid, right? They were extremely embarrassing. You would have to go into a bank and apply for them. Your neighbors might see you. I pulled up a Sylvia Plath book, and Sylvia Plath is this sort of I'm sorry, Sylvia Plath, Sylvia Porter. My old poetry English major side is coming out. Sylvia Porter was basically the founder of personal finance. And so I pull out one of her books from the 1970s a few years ago, and I turn over to her discussion about second mortgages, which is basically you should never have one of these, right? So what happens? They get rebranded as home equity lines. And people love home equity lines. They will sign up for them. They will redo their houses with them. They will, oh, the bathroom's kind of old. I should really get a new toilet in here, a new sink. I don't like the tile. And it's presented, but it's more than just we're being, sort of like feckless about it, right? It's also presented as a good thing, right? They're pitched at us. We're told that it'll bring value to fix up a house. We're told it's a good idea to, take high interest credit card debt and pay it off on a home equity line. Spoiler, it's not. It's a good way to lose your house, truthfully. And, so there's this sort of line of responsibility, personal responsibility, but also the structures around us that are encouraging us in the direction of personal irresponsibility with our money, without us even thinking we're being irresponsible, because we've been told for so long that this is a responsible way to be. As for the psychological parts of this, and then I will go back to Stephanie. I'm sorry, I'm monopolizing for a minute here. One of the things that forever fascinates me are the studies that show we experience, parting with cash as pain versus using a credit card, which we just or a swipe. But I assume, by the way, the same is true for apps now, right? It just doesn't feel like real money. And the same is kind of true even for debit cards. Nothing really beats cash when you're, thinking about how to control spending. And that's an increasingly hard thing to do. We get charged for going to ATM machines. Most people don't walk around with cash. There are an increasing number of stores that won't even take cash, and so on down the line. But I think, again, it's just really interesting to think about that and how the structures around us encourage us to spend.
So and I don't want to contradict anything in any way, shape, or form. One thing I'll say is there's actually some new research, which is very fascinating, because the research that Elaine's talking about is absolutely right. For years, we found that you get less pain of payment when you spend with a credit card. It doesn't feel like real money. There's actually some new research, and I think this may be a function of the younger generation, that finds that they don't see cash as real money anymore. And it's because it's less tied to their checking accounts. And so that actually feels like fun money now for them. That may not be true for the older generations. And then I think there you still get the credit card effects, where, if you're spending money on a credit card, you don't have to count it out. You don't have to think about how much money that it is. But for a lot of the younger generations are now finding a little bit of a flip again, where now cash is seen as fun money. But I will say it's also very early research that hasn't actually been published yet. It's just some early research. But it's fascinating to think about. I think, the broader point that she's making is, that we do need to think about how we're spending our money, the form that we're using, how it makes us feel, whether we think about it as real money, as if we're thinking about it as coming out of our bank account, as we're thinking about how it affects our overall budget, is so important. And so if you're a younger consumer who doesn't look at cash as real, remember that it is. And if you're of an older generation who may overspend on credit card, also remember that's real money too. And you do have to think about those types of things. There are a lot of other things that can affect us in the marketplace. Obviously, companies use some of these scarcity tactics, in order to try to convince you that now is the only time that you can get it. I think we can all see over Black Friday, right? It's like the greatest deals, but then there's Cyber Monday, but then there's, this and that. And so each time, this is the day you have to buy it, but ask yourself, is it really a good deal? There's some very early research that shows that a lot of consumers pay attention to whether it's on sale more so than how much it's on sale. Grocery stores sometimes do this, where things will be like 3 cents off, 5 cents off, but it has a little sign that says on sale, right, or discounted. And so, with those things, we have to ask ourselves, do we actually need this? Do we want it? Is this really a good deal? Is this really a deal that I'm not going to be able to get next week or next month? And there are ways of knowing that and learning about that through apps now. There are apps that can track what prices have been like over time to tell you whether it's actually a good deal or not. And I think consumers should really make use of those types of things so that they don't fall prey exactly to the types of things that Helena is talking about, the environment around us that can perpetuate the spending.
Great. This next question is for Dr. Karkiewska. We know financial literacy plays a big role in being financially responsible. What are some ways to help students become financially empowered adult consumers?
Thank you. And this actually goes towards the conversation that Helene is starting, which is really nice, which is taking a look at what are the environmental factors. And the thing that I'm finding is that whenever I explain things to students in terms of learning about finances, these are social work students for the main part, but all students, at first there's this idea from a lot of them that like, oh yes, this is interesting. People will definitely want to take part in it. They'll definitely be so interested to learn how all of this works. We're going to have to beat them off with a stick. There's going to be so many interested people. But then when we do anything that has to do with volunteering to get your credit report read or learning about something, it is crickets out there. It is so very, very difficult. And the truth of the matter is that in terms of teaching students, but really human beings, finances are kind of the intersection of anxiety and boredom at the same time. The topic of it, if you aren't already in it. And the thing that I find is that I will continue to have with students all these different like ways, little raffle things. So like that, you can check your credit and stuff like that. But I already know that not nobody is going to do it. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the thing that does work is putting it into the pipes. So if I embed a training and then, it's a social work training in a class, they do it as an assignment, then afterwards they say like, wow, this was really meaningful, this was really helpful, but never ever would they actually do it as an elective or anything like that. So this goes to the larger point of we need to be thinking about what are the environmental factors that are at play here, as opposed to kind of depending on people to take time out of their everyday life in order to learn something about finances, which in reality is also a function of the fact that our financial world is really transforming to be, essentially more exploitative of the consumer. And this is happening kind of behind our backs. And it's kind of not fair to be asking all of us who are so very busy to take time out of our lives, that we have so little time anyway. There's the scarcity of time to be learning something that might make you feel anxious and that might make you feel like honestly bored, like whatever. All sorts of things are good for us that we don't actually do because of the fact that we're just too busy with other things. So the bottom line is, the thing that I've learned in my work is that it has to be really very much in the pipes. It has to be invisible. It has to be in the structure of the way that we just do our regular operations, as opposed to depending on people to voluntarily take this on. And then afterwards they'll appreciate it, like green eggs and ham.
Yeah, let me follow up with the really important question here. I completely agree with everything you said, Dr. Karkiewska. How does trauma play a part in our spending?
Mm. Thank you. Yes, and then we get into the deeper psychological factors that aren't just cognitive, but have to do with how much of our brain we have available to ourselves in terms of making the kind of decisions that we have. One of the things that we're having trouble with in helping people with finances is that it's easy enough. It's already hard, but it's easy enough with clients to talk to them about their credit reports. But when it comes to helping them to sign up for programs like CalKids or CalSavers, that's just like a whole other level of difficulty. Part of it has to do with institutional distrust and then just groups being essentially traumatized. But another piece of it also having to do with personal trauma is that if you are feeling traumatized, then you don't really look into the future. You're not really the ability to even hope for a future just seems kind of like um it just gets short-circuited in your brain. And so it takes an extra level of, it's not just finance, it's not just about the math of it. It's also about helping to create the structure, and then helping to people to get to the point where they're even thinking about a future without kind of like already kind of like, oh, this is even, we need to be thinking about immediately right now, and not, not the future. So it's so complex is the point, is that a lot of times finances are people think about finances or talk to themselves about finances in terms of shame, in terms of all these, like whether you're a good person or not, and it's so much more complicated, and trauma is just one piece of it.
Thank you, Dr. Karkevska. Following up on that, how do and this is for all the panelists, how do our social influences, so that's like friends, family, culture, media, affect our views and actions related to money and financial choices?
I guess I'll talk about it for a minute. We are social creatures, and we are very much, influenced by who is around us. Hang around wealthy people, you'll spend more money most likely. We keep up with the Joneses, as I said earlier. It's very hard to counteract that as an issue right now. Because that is, we want to adhere to a group. That's what we do. That's what humans do. So to tell people to not do that is extremely difficult. It's not extremely difficult. Obviously, you can say it all you want, but it's actually quite difficult to get them to do it. And I wish I had a great tip for how to do that, but actually I don't. Besides just being sort of ornery and difficult as a person. But I think it's important that the more you know about finances, I think that likely gives some form of protection. But like Joanna said, it's not like we should expect people to just say, oh, I'm going to go read Helene's book, The Index Card, in my free time. This looks like a great read. Trust me, it's only a great read if you're really into personal finance in the first place. Classes are wonderful, but we also know that, just lecturing people doesn't work particularly well. Within 18 months, they'll pretty much forget anything, like they forget any other subject, right? Like this doesn't make finances particularly unique. We forget math, we forget social studies, we forget English. But, the more awareness around us, generally, the better. And again, I do feel it helps to, sort of mandate as an increasing amount of spending goes online, what can be done and what can't be done online. A personal example is I discovered this because I was trying to book a hotel while I was traveling, that in California, we now see upfront prices altogether. If I want to book a hotel, they have to tell me what exactly I'm spending, right? I want to do 3 days, and it's all going to come up in the initial price, the 3 days, the taxes, the resort fee, et cetera, et cetera. And in a number of other states, it's simply untrue. And yeah, that'll help you control your spending and help you keep, not keep up with people, probably a lot better than just telling people to be conscious of it.
Yeah, I'll join in there, and I think keeping up with the Joneses is absolutely a part of our culture. Unfortunately, I think that social media has exacerbated this as well. We now see on social media that our friends are going on a vacation, and then the next week another friend is going on a vacation. What we don't see is the other weeks when they're not on vacation. So at any given time, we are made aware of things that people in our social circle are buying or doing that involves spending money. And that does encourage us and gives us this sense that we're missing out, that we're not doing as much, even if we don't know all the things that they're not buying on a regular basis, right? And it is so natural for us to engage in what we call upward social comparison. We like to look at our lives and particularly compare it to a people that have more than us. That is the natural tendency. To Helene's point, like, can you tell them to stop doing it? No, you can't tell them to stop doing it, right? Like they're not going to just stop. But you know, if we think about, I think what this panel has been getting at, it's about, I think, changing your environment and changing what you do. And so, you know, one thing that I think people can do that actually could make a difference is, you know, think about volunteering at a, you know, with people that have less than you. And I think that's a good reminder that you have a lot more than other people. Not only are you giving back to society, but it can actually make you feel better about your financial situation and kind of put things in perspective sometimes. So, you know, finding ways to change your environment, you know, going to restaurants in worse parts of town. Oftentimes they have better restaurants, to be very honest. And if you find those places and you frequent those places, it'll be a good reminder to you that, you know, actually you're doing pretty good. Actually, your car's, you know, perfectly fine, and you don't need a brand new car. If you're constantly putting yourselves into situations in which you are surrounded by people that have more wealth than you or like to spend more than you also don't even know some of those people that look like they have all the money in the world might not have a good financial situation when you pull back those covers, right? You don't see that piece of it. So I think what we can, you know, what best you can do is, you know, take a second. I know we don't like to think about our finances, but take a second and think about how can you actually change your daily life to put yourself around people that might not have as much as you, so that there are these kind of physical reminders that, you know, you are doing okay and that you might not need to get that new thing all the time.
And I'll jump in, but I'm going to jump in also from the structural point. Just in terms of like, if anybody listening is, for example, an employer or, you know, or somebody where you have control over people. The thing that I found, I'm working with in a Hispanic serving institution, and so our student body is overwhelmingly low income, overwhelmingly first generation college students. And the thing that what we know from research or what we tend to know is that communities like this are very, very reluctant to talk about finances, to engage with anybody that's like, hi, I'm a financial coach, I can help you. Oh, no, no, thank you. And but the thing that but also we might be like for those of us who can control environments, we might also be short selling the community, because some of it is also in the way that you present it. So in that little training that we created that I'm making students do as a course assignment, it was an open question as to the way that I structured it is you have to learn it for yourself, like how to do a credit report and stuff like that. And then you have to teach it to somebody else, like you have to do it with somebody else too. And then you have to reflect on it. There's a pedagogy behind it. And the thing that was an open question was like, would they be willing to do it with anybody else? And who would they choose if they do it with somebody else? And what we found that was super interesting is that actually most of the time, the students found people who are very close to them, their friends and their closest, there's their partners, their parents, their siblings, then it's going to be their friends, and then, you know, and then it's pretty rare that they would find somebody that they don't know in order to do this. And the way that and I think the reason why is because the way that it's pitched to them is that, can you help me with this stupid assignment? I have to do it. And so then in that case, the other person is helping you out, as opposed to them being kind of like somebody who doesn't know how to work with money. And so now me as an expert and an undergraduate social work student are going to like be telling you how you should be doing your money. So I wonder whether there isn't kind of like more room for us to be thinking through of how is it that we package things so like that it doesn't sound like it's kind of like you're trying to work on finances, this important topic. But anyway, in terms of the friends and family effect, I think that there's also more room for research and kind of like really investigating those kinds of dynamics, because it is true that these families don't usually do this, because students oftentimes report that this is the only time that we've ever talked about finances in that way. But it also doesn't mean that it's not possible to create situations where it makes it easier to do that.
Yeah, I would just say, and Stephanie probably knows a bit more about this than I do, but there is research that shows having accountability partners really makes a big difference in people's spending. You know, whether it's in a group setting, like, you know, Debtors Anonymous, or, you know, women learning about money together, or even investment clubs, right? It just seems like in the group itself, if you have to report back to somebody, you will spend less and you will save more. It's actually research that has really fascinated me over the years. So I just want to give it a shout out here. This isn't, it's not going to, turn you into a multi-millionaire if you're working a minimum wage job, but it can potentially make the difference between having a small bit of savings and having none at all if trouble comes calling.
Thank you. A lot of really great insights here. I'll share my own personal story because it kind of is relevant here with social influences and being with someone accountable. I have a particular someone in my life who goes shopping every Sunday with her sisters because that's what her sisters do. And I had that conversation with her asking, hey, why do you always go shopping on Sundays with your sisters? Is it because you just want to spend time with your sister, or is it you really need to buy something? And it's that social aspect. So I suggested, hey, you don't have to go shopping. You can come hang out at our house. We can have brunch here. So yeah, really great question, really great answers. Let's wrap it up with one final question for all our panelists. How can consumers change their spending habits? Really quickly here.
I'll go ahead and start. I think, I mentioned at the beginning that that you can either get pleasure or pain from spending on things, on a personal basis, and then Helene brought up the fact that how we spend money can also affect how pleasurable or displeasurable it is. I think, one thing you can do is think past the purchase itself. So think about actually using things on an ongoing basis and what that will do for you rather than the joy you'll get at acquiring something, thinking about, whether or not it's something that you would actually want to have in your life on an ongoing basis. If you can train yourself to think about that while you're shopping, it will change what you want to spend money on. There are things that look great, but won't give you pleasure for a long period of time, or things that don't look so great, but actually would be very useful if you had it on an ongoing basis. And I think thinking past the purchase to the usage is really important. And related to that is the fact that we know that people don't really think about opportunity costs, which is like what you're not getting by spending the money on something. So if I spend it on this, I can't have this other thing. We're terrible at that in general. People don't naturally think about it. But if you can train yourself to just think about those things, consider what you're not spending money on when you are spending money on something, it can really change, like what you spend on and whether you're going to spend. So I think those are two things that you can do, kind of trying to train yourself. Outside of that, I think we've talked about a lot of the structural components. I think trying to think about apps that you can have that will, alert you when you're spending money. I now have a Capital One app that will tell me every time my husband spends money, even though I don't even want to know what he's spending money on. But just getting that alert every time is a secondary awareness that I'm spending money. And if you can think about things that you can do structurally to change, the salience of the amount that you're spending on a regular basis, if you have a budgeting app that gives you pop-ups, right? Because we're not going to look at it all the time, but if they pop up on us, then we're much more aware of these types of things. And so, using those apps that help you find the best price on something that you're going to spend money on. If you're going to, get a hotel, look at it a couple times, even after you bought it, to see if the price goes down. You can rebuy it and cancel your old one, right? There are apps that can track those things for you to take it out of your mind. So the things that you can offload to apps or to the environment, I think is really helpful, because we can train ourselves and we can try to be better, but the world is complicated. We are all busy. We don't always have time to make the best financial decisions for ourselves. And so the things that we can do to find the tools that are made available to us, I think are the best things that we can do for ourselves.
I love this. And I'm going to jump in on Stephanie's point, which is that in terms of like training ourselves in a different way, I think that what's important is to kind of decouple the idea of finances and the habit formation, because a lot of times we trip ourselves out or like talk ourselves out of it by through the pain. Like I don't want to lose money. I don't want to saving money is somehow losing money because I don't get to spend this thing. And in reality, it's something that just is just kind of like the psychology of it is the barrier. The hard part is actually developing this spending habit. So if people were to focus on doing absurdly small amounts of money into savings, figuring out where you're going to put the money, figuring out an automatic routing system, so like that you're transferring 5 cents and then building it up over time, then that's going to be something that will short circuit the part of your brain that says like, oh my goodness, no, I'm missing out. And instead it's going to be, I'm just building this habit and making it be automatic and then increasing the thing. Because over time, as you get into finances, you get more and more joy with seeing the accumulation of your savings, and more kind of like, I don't know, you just feel like such a strong person for having done it. But you can only do it if you are able to really acknowledge the fact that it's really difficult for us to change our habits, and that we have to really kind of work at the habit piece before we even think about the financial piece, because the financial piece will come if we can do the habit.
I'll just speak up really quickly because I know we're at time, but I have always found one of the greatest ways to get control over spending is to do a money diary for a month or two, where either you physically jot down or type into your phone or use an app every bit of spending. So that, generally means you're inputting some of it yourself, right? Because you're not always just using one thing or another to pay for things. And over time, that seems to make a big difference because you'll flag stuff that you didn't realize you were spending money on. It gives you a consciousness of what you're spending, and where your money is going. I find it an incredibly helpful exercise for everyone, whether you're trying to cut back or not, actually, because everybody kind of would like to know, or, it would be a good idea if they knew where their money was going. And it's astonishing how many of us actually really don't. So I always urge people to just do it as an exercise, especially when you're actually not an extremis. Because one of the things I always also find is it actually is weirdly easier in some ways to cut back when you don't need to cut back. I mean, obviously you will cut back if you have to cut back, but psychologically at least, it's a lot easier to give up something from a position of strength than a position of weakness.
Very good. Thank you so much. Again, another big thank you to our panelists for sharing their knowledge, their experience, and insights. I want to say back to you, Katie.
Wow, yeah, thank you. So much to take in. I'll definitely think about my spending habits before I make any purchase. A sincere thank you to our panelists for such an insightful conversation. That was awesome. So I know we're running a little bit late, but please stick around. We're going to hear from a handful of state departments with updates about their divisions and learn about how they can help consumers. And first up, I'm delighted to introduce Carolina Hernandez, Outreach and Client Services Manager from the State Treasurer's Office, to discuss CalSavers. Take it away, Carolina.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Katie. Thank you very much to our panelists, too. I know a lot of those comments really resonated with my personal finance as well, and I love the idea of keeping a diary just for awareness. But I'll jump in straight into the content for today since we are running a little bit behind. So again, I'm Carolina Hernandez. I'm the Outreach and Client Service Manager with the CalSavers Retirement Savings Board. Thank you very much for having me today. If you have not heard of CalSavers before, it is California's retirement savings program. It was created to help people who don't have access to a plan through their job. So as of 2019, state law does require employers to either offer a retirement plan of their own for their employees or to register for CalSavers to help their employees start saving. So I'm excited to share how CalSavers helps pave the way to greater financial well-being by making it easier for millions of Californians to build long-term savings. Next slide, please. So I'll start off with the challenge that CalSavers was created to address. Before the creation of CalSavers, research showed us that nearly half of working Californians were on track to retire into economic hardship. Now, a major contributor was that over 7 million workers lacked access to a retirement savings option at their workplace. And that really matters because research also tells us that people are 15 times more likely to save when they can do so through their payroll deduction. And when automatic enrollment is included, like in CalSavers, then they are 20 times more likely to be saving. That's going to be a huge step towards financial security. Next slide, please. So knowing that the most effective way to help people start saving is through their workplace, the California legislature took action back in 2016. They passed a law that did two key things. It created a retirement mandate for employers, as well as authorizing the launch of the CalSavers program. Now, under this law, employers with an average of at least one eligible employee must either offer a qualified retirement plan or register with CalSavers to provide their employees access to the program. Employers who already offer a plan or begin offering one by their deadline, they are exempt, but make sure that you are reporting that exemption over to CalSavers. Now, as for who can participate, CalSavers is open to individuals who are at least 18 years or older and have earned income, and to make the program as inclusive as possible. Workers that are using an individual taxpayer identification number or an ITIN number are also eligible to participate. Now, anyone who does meet these criteria and is working for a registered employer should be given access to the program, now regardless of whether they are full-time, part-time, or seasonal workers. Next slide, please. Now, the following are going to be some of the key employer features that we had in mind when we were designing the CalSavers program. To reduce the barriers employers were facing when offering retirement benefits, we built CalSavers with three priorities in mind: simplicity, no cost, and no liability. It's simple to facilitate. Employers just upload employee information and submit payroll contributions. We handle any communication, account management, and tax reporting directly with our savers. There are no employer fees. It is completely free for employers to participate. And there's also no fiduciary risk. So since employers do not sponsor the plan, they are not legally liable. That responsibility lies with our board as well as our program administrator. Now, let's talk about what this means for our savers. When workers are added through their employer, they don't have to do a thing. They're automatically enrolled, but participation is optional, of course. They can opt out or customize their account settings at any time. The accounts are portable, meaning that it travels with individuals from job to job. So it's not going to be tied to their employer, giving them continuous control over their savings. And it's also a low-fee program designed to keep more money in our savers' pockets. Those fees that they pay do go directly towards covering the cost of administering the CalSavers program. Next slide, please. Now, before I wrap up, I want to share some tools available to help both our employers as well as our savers. Our website here has helpful templates. We have a really useful FAQ section. We do offer full webinars for our employers as well as our savers, and you can find the registration page over on calsavers.com. We also have a multilingual call center as well as local field team ready to assist anyone that needs any help along the process. And one more reason to take action early. We are currently running an incentive campaign for all of our eligible employers who registered before the end of the year. So 2,000 employers will be randomly selected to receive a $500 award. So if you require to register and you do so prior to your registration deadline, you will be automatically entered. Visit calsavers.com to learn a little bit more on how to get started. Now, thank you again for the opportunity to share how CalSavers supports financial wellness by making savings easier and more accessible for all Californians. I'll hand it back over to you, Katie.
Excellent. Thank you, Carolina. Next, we'll hear from Dana Salas, Outreach Specialist, also from the Treasurer's Office, and she's going to speak on CalKids program and ScholarShare 529 plan. Thanks, Dana.
Hi, Katie. Thank you, everyone. So we'll get down to it because of time. So ScholarShare 529 will be giving you these resources about this program and also CalKids, so stay tuned for that. So just to elaborate on the ScholarShare 529 program, it is a college savings plan. So it's a resource for families to help them save for those future higher education costs. We have been around for over 25 years, and Little statistic, we have over 13 billion in assets, and this is just to show that we have been around for a long time and families are using our program to save. So it's a reputable program that many families trust, and like many families, they can use it to save for college in the future. Next slide. So with the 529, it is an investment vehicle. So families will open up a plan, save their money, and all their savings will be invested. Those investments grow tax-free. That's one of the perks of this program. So those tax-free earnings mean more money for college. Like this slide shows, the gray bar is just what you're saving overall, but if you invest it, you get some earnings potential, and that just means more money that you could use to pay those high costs of college. Next slide. And the reason why we want to encourage families to save is because of that student loan debt. There's about $1.7 trillion out there in student loan debt, and these numbers always fluctuate, but it's a lot of money either way. So we want to encourage families to save so they can be prepared and not have to rely solely on student loans. Some may need to because of emergencies or whatever the case may be, but we want to avoid that as much as possible because 43.2 million Americans have student loan debt. So the way to decrease that is to save early on, but it's never too late to save too. We like to tell families anytime you could save, either if your child's already an 18-year-old, it's okay because they may have graduate school. So it's always good to save, and any time is a good time to start. Next slide. So this money that you save over the years, you can use it for, obviously college is the primary thing you're going to save for, but you can use it for other things too. There's some new legislation that passed that if unused monies can be used for other purposes, but you can use the money specifically for higher education costs in California and around the world. So if your student wants to study abroad, they could possibly use the money there. They could use it at technical schools, vocational schools, private, public, many types of schools are covered. You could use the money to buy books and supplies, computer equipment. So there's a lot of possibilities. Now, if families end up having extra money left over, or if someone else wants to use the money that maybe the first child doesn't, then you could always change beneficiaries. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you use the money. You're not totally locked in. If someone doesn't use it for college, there are options. The money that you've been saving is your money, but you can withdraw for other purposes. Now, if you use it for something other than higher education or those eligible purchases or purposes that are okay to use it for, if you don't use it for those okay things, then you would be penalized, but only on the earnings. So it's not a huge hit, but it's still something that families could have set aside so they could use for those high costs of college. Next slide. So just real quick, I want to talk to you about the College Savings Day promotion coming up at the end of May. So if you do open a new Scholarshare 529 account during this promotion period, you can get $50 extra. So it's a little extra money. Who doesn't like that? So if you open an account within this promotion period, visit the website and have to use the promo code, then you will get an extra $50 if you do all those steps. So just FYI for you guys wanting to open an account coming up. Next slide. So we'll shift gears here into the CalKids program. It is a scholarship through the state of California, and we'll talk about who's eligible. Next slide. Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep talking about CalKids. So the CalKids program is eligible for two groups. One is all newborns that are eligible in California that have been born on or after July 1st of 2022. And the other group is all eligible public school students. And each of them can get various rates. So newborns can get up to $175 just for being born, and public school students can get up to $1,500 for being a student. So if you want to learn more about that, visit calkids.org. So hopefully many of the families are able to take advantage of this scholarship. That's automatic, really. If they're eligible, they're automatically enrolled, and they would have this free money ready to use. So I'll give it back to Katie so she can continue on, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Dana. Not sure where our video is, but we're working on it. But in the meantime, I'm going to toss it over to Outreach Manager Lisa Strange from the California Department of Insurance, and we'll try and get those slides going for you, Lisa.
No problem. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks.
Again, my name is Lisa Strange, and I get to serve as the Northern California Outreach Manager here at the Department of Insurance. And I really appreciate the opportunity once again to share a little bit about the Department of Insurance and how we help protect consumers in the insurance marketplace and ways you can be proactive to protect yourself as well. So the California Department of Insurance is the consumer protection agency for the nation's largest insurance marketplace. And all of our functions, including overseeing insurer solvency, licensing agents and brokers, resolving consumer complaints, and investigating and prosecuting insurance fraud, are to protect consumers. And the department has 11 branches, and today I wanted to just go over a few of those. So our licensing and services division licenses about 495,000 agents and brokers. And their mission is to maintain the integrity of the insurance industry by conducting thorough background investigations of persons and organizations seeking authority to transact insurance in California. So we really strongly encourage you to verify the license status of an agent, broker, bail agent, or any other person that might be trying to sell some insurance product to you. We want you to verify their license by utilizing a tool on our website. And the link is on the slides, which we can maybe put that in the chat, and I know the slides will be sent out later, so that link will be provided for you. Additionally, we have the Consumer Services and Market Conduct Branch, which focuses on consumer assistance and protection by educating consumers, mediating the consumer complaints, and enforcing insurance laws. And so within that branch, there is the Consumer Services Division, who are primarily responsible for responding to all of our inquiries and complaints that we may have involving insurance companies or the agent and broker activities. And so if you need this assistance on any line of insurance, you may reach us through our website at www.insurance.ca.gov, or you may call our consumer hotline number toll free at 1-800-927-4357. The other branch I wanted to feature today is the enforcement branch, which consists of both a fraud division and an investigation division. And they investigate about 4,600 cases of misconduct and fraud by insurers, bail bond agents, employers, providers, other insurance agents and brokers, and claimants annually. And so obviously we hope that you never find yourself needing this service, but if you do, and you need to report suspected insurance fraud, again, we will provide that link for you to do so. In continuance with our mission of consumer protection, we also have a financial surveillance branch whose main goal is to oversee the financial condition of the insurance industry and really just make sure that they can provide the benefits and protections that you've been paying for. So that's a very important branch. And then the last branch that I kind of wanted to highlight is the Community Relations and Outreach branch, of which I'm a part. And so we really work with our partners and all of you to provide information on accessing the department's services and resources through webinars like this, town halls, roundtables, and many other community events. With wildfire season upon us, I guess actually, I would say in California, probably all year long is wildfire season, sadly, but as we're getting drier and whatnot, we're ramping up on going out and sharing information on how folks can protect themselves from those disasters and what happens if they find themselves in one, and what's kind of due to you as you maybe rebuild and whatnot. So again, we're just really out there to share this information with everyone. And then just lastly, to help you kind of be prepared before you purchase an insurance product, we do have information guides and one-pagers on our website. And You can download these yourself. You can reach out to me through Katie, and we can mail these brochures to you at no charge at no charge. So whatever it is that you need to prepare yourself before purchasing insurance, we're really here to help you with that. So just once again, I wanted to reiterate our information. We are having some difficulties with the slides, so just wanted to share again, our website is insurance.ca.gov. And again, consumer hotline number is 800-927-4357, which actually spells help. So that makes it a little easier to remember. So really encourage you to visit our website and give us a call if you have any questions about any lines of insurance. Thank you so much, and back to you, Katie.
Thanks, Lisa. So sorry about the slides. We're still trying to work on those. Again, as Lisa mentioned, all these slides will be emailed to you, so don't worry about trying to jot something down. You will have all of that information after the webinar. But finally, let's hear from Anthony Vo, Supervising Special Investigator from the Department of Real Estate. Take it away, Anthony.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for joining this presentation. Thank you for the panelists and everybody's great presentation. I'm going to give you a cliff note of exactly what the presentation will be because we're running short on time. I am the Anthony Vo. I'm the Supervising Special Investigator from the California Department of Real Estate out of the Los Angeles District Office in the Enforcement Section. We conduct the investigation. DRE's primary mission is consumer protection, which is to safeguard and promote the public interest in real estate matters through licensure, regulations, education, and enforcement. It is our mission statement as well as the real estate law. There's a section code of the Business and Professions Code states that our highest priority is protection of the public. There are different sections within the DRE. We have 5 sections: licensing, enforcement, audits, subdivision, and legal. And there are 5 district offices in the state of California. Now, buying a home may be the biggest investment you will make in your lifetime. And therefore, it is important to ensure you work with a licensed individual. In California, one is required to be licensed, properly licensed with the DRE as a broker, which can be an individual like you or me, or a corporation, or a salesperson employed with a real estate broker when helping other in real estate services. Now, to be properly licensed, that means if it's a broker must have a valid main office address. And if it's a salesperson must be employed with the broker. Now, please also note that brokers and salesperson who want to perform residential mortgage loan activities, they are required to obtain an MLO, which is a mortgage loan originator endorsement, which would be obtained through the nationwide multi-state licensing system, where I'm going to refer to as NMLS. Now, the DRE uses the NMLS to manage the MLO license endorsements, and information submitted through NMLS must match current DRE records. As I mentioned, you want to verify an individual's license or not. You can also, first, you could call the our public line, which is 877-373-4542, or you can log onto our website, which is www.dre.ca.gov to ensure that if the individual or entity is licensed. Now, when you're on the website, there's certain sections that you can check. Unfortunately, we don't have the website on. So when you're on there, you can look at where it shows the word verify a real estate license. I'm going to skip through certain information, but what I would like to share that's very important is the DRE resources. As this webinar is about financial literacy, there is an abundance of information from our website that would help strengthen your knowledge and understanding to help you make an informed decision when it comes to renting, buying, or selling a home. Now, when you're on the website, there's several sections that you want to click on. This under the tab Consumers. If the consumers allow you to verify information or obtain information that's called the landlord and tenant guideline. You could also look at the information on home buyers and borrowers. And then also there's top tips in regards to purchasing a home and also the home buying process step by step. Those information is very valuable for anyone or for any consumers. And now also there's several different sections that one covers consumer alerts. There's many different type of alerts each year. So we suggest that you log onto our website. Again, it's www.dre.ca.gov and verify the information. You can always call the Department of Real Estate to obtain that information as well. We can guide you through how to search for that. I'm going to refer you back to Katie to cover the remaining of the presentation.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks everyone for sticking around. So sorry, I apologize for the slide issue, but that does conclude our speaker portion of the event. Thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you to everyone who participated in today's webinar. And before we close, if you have any questions about any topics in today's webinar, please do not hesitate to email us at outreach@dfpi.ca.gov, and we'll make sure that your question gets to the right place. And remember, these slides will be emailed to you, so even though you can't see them right now, you will be able to after this presentation. As always, please subscribe to the DFPI's newsletter, social media, and YouTube channel so you can continue to get great working content. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.